Hi guys. Okay, so normally I'm just off to bed, but I really need to talk about something because I need to get it out of my system, and I'm still kind of in shock. So okay, I'll start at the beginning. So 2 days ago, a German comedian named Oliver Pocher, that I really don't like at all, was punched in the face in public next to kind of like a boxing fight by a guy named Fat Comedy. I've never heard of him before, but he claims to be a comedian and rapper. So this guy, he just planned this, and he got somebody to film it, and he walks up to this Oliver Pocher guy and just punches him randomly in the face. Now don't get me wrong, I really don't like Oliver Pocher, and I don't think he's funny at all, and I think he is a kind of a bully, and he always how do you say it, he well, he built up his fame by stepping down on people, right? Yeah, so I'm not a fan at all. And if you would ask me, I'd probably say if anybody deserves a good punch in the face, it would be Oliver Pocher. Having said that, of course, don't do that. Never do that. Don't punch anybody in the face. You don't do that, right? Yeah. So when I heard about it and saw the video, I was like really shocked. I was as shocked by him being punched in the face as I was actually by the reaction of everybody sitting around, in the majority men, because they were not reacting at all. Like, they were only staring, and some even got their phone out, like how it is nowadays, and started filming it. Nobody helped him. Nobody stepped in. Like, civil courage is dead, I suppose. So, yeah, that was shocking to me. I mean, as I said before, I really don't like this guy. But if I would have been there, yeah, I would have helped him. And, you know, I'm a woman and I don't like him. But still, that's what you do, right? You don't, you know, let others punch people randomly in the face. So, I read about it on Twitter, and there was like controversy about it. Some people, you know, were the opinion of me, which I think is the right opinion, that, you know, you don't do this, and this is, you can only say this is very, very wrong. But of course there were like some people that said like he deserves it, and it's good he got that, and, you know, he kind of provoked it, blah, 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 which is, it's crap, because, yeah, violence is never the answer. Unless, you know, if somebody punches you in the face, then you can punch him back. That's basically the only situation. Or if somebody punches, like, your child or whatever, of course, then you can punch him back, like in self-defense. But not randomly just because you don't like him, you don't like his jokes, whatever. There are other ways. Anyhow, so this was on my mind already. And then last night, there were the Oscars. I mean, most of you have heard about this by now. So I always watch the Oscars. It's like my tradition. I always do it live. I watch them. I eat lots of stuff. Afterwards, I feel kind of sick because I ate so much unhealthy stuff. I did this year again, like always. And it was like a kind of okay show. It wasn't very exciting. There were a couple of nice moments. It wasn't bad. It was okay. But I was sitting there and I found like, this is a little bit boring maybe. So then Chris Rock comes on stage, and I'm not a fan of Chris Rock, although I do find some of his jokes funny, and I am a fan of dark humor. So yeah, and I don't think jokes and humor always has to be political correct. Anyhow, so he comes on stage, he starts making some jokes, and I'm thinking, you know, this is actually what this show needs right now. And then he's doing a joke towards Javier Bardem and Penelope Cruz, and they are laughing. And then he moves on and makes a joke towards Will Smith and his wife, Jada Pinkett Smith. And yeah, and Will Smith, of course, as we all know, he's nominated for Best Actor as well, for the movie he did about the Williams sisters, and he played their father. So, and he's kind of the favorite to win, right? So this is going to be his night, probably. So Chris Rock makes this joke, something about that he's waiting for the sequel of G.I. Jane, which is a movie from the 90s or something, I think, with Demi Moore, where she's a, well, a G.I., and she shaves her head, right? So Jada Pinkett Smith, she shaved her head a couple of, I don't know, months ago or something, and she was openly about it, that she suffers from an illness called alopecia. I hope I pronounce it right. It's an illness where you lose your hair, I think kind of at some places only, so she decided to shave it all off. So I don't think you know, it's a good idea to make jokes about people being ill, right? If so, I think it's better that the person herself or himself does the jokes, right? You can laugh about your own illness, but it's always like kind of, you know, a problem if others do that. However, it's Chris Rock, so, you know, he was invited to the Oscars. He was booked to do what he does, which is making controversial jokes, and often going a step further than you maybe should. So that's kind of his job. So he makes this joke about her, and obviously for her that's kind of hurtful because, you know, she's ill. I have to say, by the way, I mean, she's a beautiful woman, and she still looks awesome, even, or what I, not to say with shaved head, she, you know, it suits her. But nevertheless, I can understand, you know, if I would start losing my hair, I'd probably feel really bad about it. So I can understand. Anyhow, he makes this joke, and now comes the interesting thing. Will Smith is laughing about the joke, like really from the heart, I think. Somebody pointed out to me on Twitter that maybe it was kind of a nervous laugh, but it didn't look to me like that. It looked to me that he found it funny. I give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe it was a nervous laugh, whatever. The other thing is, like, if you know these award shows, there's always like people making jokes about you, and sometimes bad jokes. So, you know, he's used to this. He's been in the business for many, many years, as has she. So this is not a new situation. Like, they're not newcomers or something. So he's laughing, and then everybody else is laughing as well. And then he looks to his wife, and she's not laughing, like not at all. And she's kind of rolling her eyes. And you can see that she's kind of, at least, you know, pissed by it, probably, you know, hurt by it too. And then Chris Rock is going a little bit further. And then suddenly, you know, he stands up, Will Smith, and he's walking towards Chris Rock. And he's punching him in the face, like really, like, you know, like this. And first I thought, and many others did too, I thought it was staged. Because it was so weird. And, you know, it's the Oscars, and I know they broadcast with like 5 seconds delay, so they can cut out like swear words and stuff, which they actually did in the US. I saw on Twitter, because then, you know, Chris Rock is kind of in shock because he just got punched in the face on live television on the Oscars, which is kind of like the biggest show of the year. And then Will Smith walks back and he sits down, and then he's still shouting at him, and he's like, you know, telling him, don't take the name of my wife in your, you know, F-word mouth. And he's saying that twice, and he's really angry. You can actually tell by then that this is not staged, probably. He's not that good of an actor, I think. That's my personal, I think he's very often overacting, but that put on the side, at that moment I realized, you know, this is not staged. Because I watched from Germany, then suddenly the TV went black, and I thought, you know, what the heck is going on? But it was only a problem in Germany, so then it went on. And the thing is, again, like with the Pocher thing, nobody really reacted. Like, they went on as if this was normal, that somebody just, you know, gets up and punches somebody else in the face because he is insulted or his wife is insulted by a joke this person makes. You know, this is not how we should handle things, obviously. And then people wrote, you know, it was like a spontaneous reaction. Yay. I mean, the thing is, he walked like 10 meters towards him, and he didn't react this way like right away. I think that's my personal take on this, because he was laughing, and then he looks at his wife and he sees how hurt she is. And then he feels bad, I think, about himself that he laughed, because he shouldn't have laughed. You know, he knows the disease or the illness of his wife, so he shouldn't laugh. You know, he should support her. And there are many things he could have done. He could have, you know, asked her, do you want to leave? And leave the show and protest. That would have been a big sign, because, as I said, he's nominated for actor for main role, and he's sitting in the first row. So, you know, that would have been something. Or he could have walked up and, you know, taken the microphone or whatever, taken the word and told about the illness and, you know, why this is not funny, making jokes about this. There would have been a couple of things he could have done. But I think, you know, he laughed, then he looked at her, he sees she's sad and hurt, and he thinks, I need to react now, you know, I need to protect my family, I need to protect my wife, which is what he actually later said in his acceptance speech when he then really won the Oscar, you know, on top of all of this. So, in good old, like, manner, as we did when we still lived in the cave, you know, he walks up to him and just punches him in the face. It's ridiculous. It's really ridiculous. I mean, this goes against everything we nowadays should stand for. Like, she's not his possession or property. And, I mean, she's a grown woman. She can, you know, defend herself. And of course, he should protect her. I was very happy. Like, my partner, he was asleep. He doesn't watch the Oscars and he has to get up early to go to work. But he came in just after this happened and I told him about it. I was really, like, in shock. You know, I could not really enjoy the show afterwards anymore because I was so in shock. And he got it right away. He actually said that, what I just said. He said, you know, he could have left with her and supported her. And then he watched it, you know, on YouTube or somewhere. And then he told me, you know, why did he laugh? And I was like, yeah, that's the good question. Like, I think he was angry towards himself. And he kind of projected that onto Chris Rock, who obviously made him make a mistake, which was laughing at his wife. That's only my take on it. I might be wrong. Anyhow, so he punches him. Nobody reacts whatsoever. Like, he sits back and, you know, shouts at him and then as if nothing happens. It's so weird, so weird. And then there came a commercial break and I saw a video on Twitter again where they actually showed that in the commercial, I don't remember actually who, I think Denzel Washington or somebody, I might be wrong, but two other guys, actors, they well, went to him and calmed him down, and I think he kind of wiped his eyes, so he might have been crying, Will Smith. So, you know, he realized, obviously, that he did that he made a really, really bad mistake by doing that. So, yeah, and the show goes on as if nothing happens. I mean, Amy Schumer, I don't know how you pronounce her, but, you know, the host, she later made, one of the three hosts, female hosts, she later made a little reference to it, but, yeah, nobody really talked about it. They went on with the show. So then, well, it comes to Best Actor, and I'm thinking to myself, like, I hope he doesn't win it now, because, you know, he kind of ruined the show for everyone else by doing this, because this show will be remembered always for what he did and not for everything else. And, you know, there were people who won their first Oscar. This is like the biggest night of their lives. If you are in the film industry, you know what this means, like to win an Oscar or to be nominated, to be there, whatever. So I'm thinking, you know, he ruined this for me because I really normally enjoy it. And I was so in shock, I couldn't, you know, follow it really. But he ruined it for everybody else as well. So I don't like that, obviously. Anyway, so, oh yeah, and what else is, what I wanted to say is, as I said before, I mean, Chris Rock was booked for this. Like, they know what kind of jokes he makes. He only did his job. Maybe the joke was, you know, a bit too far. He took it too far. But the reaction cannot be like, hey, let's punch him in the face. I mean, it's ridiculous. I read that he's not filing a report, like, to the police, he said. If I was him, I probably would have done it. But, you know, that's his choice. Anyway, so it comes to Best Actor. Will Smith wins Best Actor, and he walks up and he starts giving a, well, he gave a very good acceptance speech. Like, he got emotional, he was crying again. And he's an actor, so he kind of knows what he's doing. But the thing is, he apologized, like, to the Academy, and then he apologized to his fellow nominees and to everybody, basically. He did not apologize to Chris Rock. And between him punching him in the face and then winning the Oscar, there were about like 40 minutes. So he could have thought about that, or that maybe it's a good idea to apologize to Chris Rock and maybe explain, you know, how this happened. But he did not. He just was like kind of going about, yeah, you know, he played this father in the movie, and like how in the movie he played somebody who protects his family, and that's what he also does in life. Like, he kind of apologized what he did himself, and kind of even put himself to being the victim in a weird way. It was weird. It was uncomfortable watching, and he was crying, and I kind of got the feeling that he was even saying, like, you know, he messed up this situation, but he didn't own that. He claimed he put the faults on everybody else. It was really weird. Yeah, and saying, you know, he protects his family, as if it's okay to punch people, like, to protect your family, which is not. And people are applauding him, and later even Anthony Hopkins thanked him, which I found so weird, because why? You know, are we back to this now? It's so weird for me. It's like really toxic masculinity at its best. Like, we don't want that, right? And, you know, before in the show, they were talking about, or they were showing some solidarity with Ukraine and, you know, the war in Ukraine. So, and then later a guy punches somebody and, you know, they say it's okay, or I don't get it. It's really, really weird. Yeah. So I think I basically covered everything I wanted to say about this. This got much longer than I thought it should be, but anyhow. So I think he made a big mistake, and I really, really hope that he will apologize at one point, because it's so bad. And I don't understand these people now. I mean, all over Twitter, again, of course, many are saying, you know, what he did was wrong and so. But of course, many are saying, no, he did the right thing. He defended his wife and his family. Like, what the heck? I mean, no, this is not what you do. Yeah. So I'm really interested what you think about this. I mean, if you saw it live, or if you saw it later, or heard about it, or read about it. I'm sorry that I look so tired, but as I said, I watched the whole night. I didn't sleep much the night before because I had a rehearsal in the morning. And, you know, I'm already in my bedroom. So this is what it is. It is what it is, right? But I needed to get this out of the system, because I've already been thinking 2 days about this Pocher thing, and how it upsets me that people really think it is okay to do that to him. And as I said, I really don't like him at all. And again, Chris Rock is not my favorite comedian, right? So, but that has nothing to do with it. Like, this is just not what you do. Unless, as I said, in self-defense. And then, you know, they are professionals, so you should be able to deal with that. Or, you know, just take your wife and ask her if she wants to leave, and then, you know, be with her. Yes, of course. You know, support her. Don't laugh at your wife. But then, you know, always be there for her if the cameras are off too. Like, don't make jokes with your buddies about your wife and then suddenly, you know, if somebody else makes a joke, you punch him in the face. You know, be supportive. And of course, you know, be supportive, you know, towards your partner. If it's a man, if it's a woman, whatever, doesn't matter. You know, just be supportive to the people you love. And, yeah, and if somebody insults you or your partner, please don't punch this person in the face. Please don't. Because this is not a good solution. And this will not bring us peace ever. And, you know, what we need the most at the moment, or ever, always, is peace. And people communicating with each other. And it is okay to say, I don't like Chris Rock and I don't like his jokes at all. You can say, I find them disgusting, I find them insulting, whatever. But, you know, don't punch him in the face. Somebody even wrote like something he could have handled it behind the stage, like kind of making it sound like it would have been okay to punch him while not on camera, which is even more weird to me because, you know, I mean, he kind of showed his true face, so that's good. And I want to add that his speech, I think there was honesty in it. I just think he got it all wrong. Like, he talked about like then God and how he is or he wants to be a vessel of love. That's actually what he used, that phrase, a vessel of love. Like literally 40 minutes after he punched a guy in the face for making a bad joke. Like, you're not a vessel of love if you randomly punch people in the face. So, yeah. And like he wants to shine on other people, and God uses him as an instrument, blah, 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 whatever. I mean, you know, it's his choice to believe in God, that's fine, but that's not an excuse to do what he did. So I really do hope that he will apologize. And hopefully that, you know, he will understand what he did. I do think he has the capacities, you know, in his brain to do that. Other than this weird guy, Fat Comedy, I don't think, you know, he will, you know, it was all, that was all staged. You know, he wanted to have this all over the internet and us talking about it, which worked because, you know, I do. So anyhow, yeah, I wish you a wonderful week. And as I said, I'm very interested in what you think about this. Please, you know, be polite in the comments as always, because if not, you know, they won't be there to read for other people. And don't insult me and don't insult others. And, you know, just open your heart to your fellow humans. And, you know, while you're doing that, why not open them to you know, all animals that live with us here as well. So, good night, and, you know, be healthy, stay healthy, or get healthy. Bye-bye.